And welcome to Barca News. It is August 26, 2025, and Amnesty International have blasted Barcelona. Also, Camp Nou update because the club have informed UEFA of their intention to play the Champions League at our home stadium. And finally, Saudis not relenting and still interested in Ferran Torres. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Mo. This is the Barca News video, not a podcast video. I'm doing this live because today I had to work pretty late. This is why I'm bringing you these videos pretty late. But since it's so late, I couldn't film, edit, and post because I have to go to bed. So instead I decided to do a live. Well, there's going to be two lives. There's going to be another one after this one, just to keep you up to date on all Barcelona news. So I'm not going to be reading the comment section. Again, this is a news video that I'm doing live. This is just to bring you the latest on our beloved club, FC Barcelona. It's starting with that Amnesty International have blasted Barcelona because of their sponsorship deal with the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Now, as you know, Barcelona have signed a new sponsorship deal with the DRC, where the DRC have agreed to pay Barcelona 44 million euros over 4 seasons. That's 11 million euros per season. In exchange, with Barcelona are gonna display what you see in the picture, the RDC, or Democratic Republic of Congo in French, on their training kits of all the teams, not just the first team, with the slogan DRC, the heart of Africa. There's also going to be a special display at Camp Nou, and there's also going to be, some investment by the Barca Foundation into the DRC with some programs to teach kids how to play different sports, not just football, also programs to train adults on how to be football coach as well. Well, Amnesty International have blasted Barcelona for their agreement with the DRC because they're saying that what the DRC are doing, they're trying to, wash their image. They're saying that the DRC are committing human rights violations, more specifically in the eastern region of the country, where there's currently a conflict between the DRC government and Rwanda-backed rebel groups. And Amnesty International is saying that the DRC are committing human rights abuses against these rebel groups. Also, the DRC are about to pass legislation that would give the death penalty to people who are accused of being homosexuals. So because there's so many human rights violations in the DRC, the Amnesty International are saying that the DRC, with this sponsorship, they're trying to kind of like, wash their image. And the DRC have said that sports cannot be a platform for to wash sports, or human rights violations by the use of sports, Steve. And of course, they're criticizing Barcelona for agreeing to this. Now, I'm not a DRC expert. I honestly don't know what's going on there, if there are human rights violations or not. But I'll say this. What I have noticed with a lot of these NGOs is that there's always a double standard. There's always some hypocrisy that goes on behind these kind of statements and these kind of actions. Now, I'm not going to use politics because that divides people and then eventually they end up missing the point. Let's use a different scenario. Let's look at, for example, the clothing industry, right? We all know Shein. It's a Chinese company, fast fashion. They manufacture fast fashion. And since they became popular, they've been heavily criticized because their practices are very damaging to the environment. They produce huge quantities of clothing that end up in landfills. They also produce really cheaply made clothes. And more importantly, they produce these clothes in sweatshops, in places where have horrific conditions of their workers, where the workers are exploited. They're paid pennies a day, and they work extremely long hours without breaks. Now, that, of course, is wrong, and all the criticism and all the campaigns that have been launched against Shein are right about these abuses. But here's where the double standard lies. Zara, they do the same exact thing. H&M, they do the same exact thing. You don't even have to look at fast fashion brands. Nike, Adidas, Victoria's Secret, you name it. All these companies have been doing this for decades, abusing their workers, producing cheaply made goods that fall apart in sweatshops in horrific conditions. But because they were Western companies, for decades, nobody batted an eye, nobody cared. But the moment a Chinese company does it, all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. Now, I'm not trying to justify what Shein does because two wrongs don't make a right. What everyone is doing is wrong. But if you're going to call out one, you have to call out all of them. And I think this is one of these cases where we have plenty of Western countries that commit horrific human rights violations, and yet nobody criticized them. But the DRC, African nation, it's easier to mess with them. It's easier to point the finger. So, of course, let's blast what they're doing. Again, I'm not justifying what's happening in the DRC. I honestly don't know what's happening in the DRC. I don't know anything about the DRC. But if we are going to call out a wrong, let's call it out all across the board, not just when it suits us. All right, on to the next bit of news because we do have an update in regards to that Spotify Camp Nou. As I reported in yesterday's podcast, Barcelona have received the certificate of completion from the construction company Limec, which says, hey, the two sections that are going to reopen, which is Gol Sud and Tribuna, are ready. Barcelona has submitted that certificate to the city. The city have sent inspectors to inspect these two sections. And depending on that inspection, the city will either agree to grant Barcelona the permits to play in there starting September 14th weekend, or they might say, sorry, bad luck. In that case, Barcelona would have to go to Montjuic. Well, that's not the update because I already told you about this during yesterday's podcast. The update is that, as you know, by the 28th, which is Thursday, Barcelona have a deadline where they have to notify UEFA which stadium they're going to be playing in. And remember, whatever stadium Barcelona chooses, that's the stadium they're going to have to be playing in until the group stages are over, because you cannot change stadiums during group stages, according to UEFA rules. Well, it's reported that Barcelona have communicated to UEFA their intention of playing at the Camp Nou, the Champions League. Now, this is not final. Barcelona are going to maintain communication with UEFA over the next 2 days because, of course, Barcelona are still awaiting the city's response on whether the city are going to give Barcelona the permits to operate the stadium or not. So if the city gives Barcelona the permits, Barcelona will pick up the phone and say, hey, UEFA, remember I told you my intention to play at the stadium? Well, that has been confirmed. We're playing at the Camp Nou. Let's go. Now, if that doesn't happen, if the permits don't happen, then Barcelona are going to have to play the Champions League at Montjuic. Now, there is a little caveat. Even if Barcelona get the permits from the city and they tell UEFA we're going to play at the Camp Nou, there is a big requirement. UEFA requires that a stadium that's being used to play the Champions League, that one of their lateral stands be open and host people. Now, as you know, Barcelona are going to go back to the Camp Nou in phases. Phase 1A includes Tribuna and Gol Sud, 27,000 people. That phase 1A, does not include a lateral stand. So even if Barcelona get the permits and return to the Camp Nou September 14th, they would not be allowed to play UEFA Champions League there until one of their lateral stands is open, and that's not going to happen until phase 1B is done, which is the phase where it's going to allow Barcelona to host 45,000 people at the stadium. Now, of course, Barcelona did request from UEFA that their first away match be played, the first match be played away. So that does give them more time to not only finalize phase 1A and get the permits, but to also finalize phase 1B, which again will have that lateral stand open, which is required for any UEFA Champions League match. So Barcelona definitely racing against the clock. We'll see what happens, but of course I will be here to give you all the updates in regards to our beloved stadium. Now on to the next bit of news, because ladies and gentlemen, it's reported that Nike are upset that Barcelona have not been able to debut their away kit, the Kobe Bryant kit, and the third kit, which is the kit you see currently on your screen. Now, as you know, Barcelona have had to play with the third away kit. No, sorry, the third kit from last season, which is the ugly green one, during both matches against Mallorca and Levante. That's because La Liga uses an application called Kit Selector, where you upload all your kits to that application, and then the application measures whether there's any clashes between the kits that you have and the kits the other team has, the team that you're playing against, and then it tells you which kit you can select. So far, the kit selector has said that all three kits that Barcelona have for this season have clashed with the Mallorca kit and also with the Levante kit. So Barcelona have had to use the kit from last season. So that, of course, has made Nike very angry. because, they see that they have invested a lot of money into these kits and they're not being used, and therefore that's going to affect their sales. And, my answer to that, Nike, well, you should have done a better job designing, because you should definitely have taken factored in or taken into consideration what are the other kits from the other teams, and how can I create kits where not all three of them are going to clash at the same time. You could have thought about that, right? So maybe you don't have that right to be that upset, because, again, you're the one who created these kits, and you should have taken this into consideration. Maybe you shouldn't be that lazy and continuously, recycle designs, because this orange kit, we've seen it before. But anyways, what do I know? Now, on to the next bit of news, because, ladies and gentlemen, the Saudis are still interested in Ferran Torres. They have once again reached out to the player and his entourage, and have reached out to Barcelona. They're willing to offer 70 million euros for the Shark. Now, of course, it doesn't really matter, because Ferran is not looking to leave, and Barcelona are not looking to sell him, because Flick really counts on him. But honestly, if it was up to me, I would definitely sell Ferran Torres for 70 million euros. I think that's a really good price for someone like Ferran. Now, of course, we wouldn't have a substitute for Lewandowski, except we do, right? We have Marcus Rashford, who could play as a 9. But anyways, this doesn't matter. It's all opinion. At the end of the day, Ferran is not looking to leave. Barcelona are not looking to sell him. So 70 million euros will not be made from the sale of our super sub. Now, on to the last bit of news, because, ladies and gentlemen, Dembele has had some pretty cool statements to say about his former teammate, Lionel Andres Messi, the GOAT, the greatest to ever play the sport. And this is what the former Barcelona player had to say. I had a very good relationship with Messi from the very first day. My locker was right next to his, and he gave a lot of advice to me. He was someone who instinctively knew what you wanted. He told me that I'd have to be serious if I wanted to achieve my dreams. After that, I watched and learned from what he did on the pitch. Whether he played as a number 10 or number 9, his positioning was exceptional. The way he seemed to sometimes to make himself invisible on the pitch. Sometimes you don't seem to see him for about 4 or 5 minutes. Then as soon as he gets the ball, he instinctively knows what to do. Messi would know when Jordi Alba was going to double up front with him, when he was going to put the ball in. He understands football really well, positions himself very well on the pitch, and we all know what he can do with his feet. So there you have it, folks. Dembele crediting some of his success to Lionel Messi, to the advice that Messi gave him, and of course to, just playing with him and watching the greatest ever do his thing. I can only imagine what a pleasure it must be, what a great experience it must be to share a locker room with the greatest ever. Anyways, that is all the news for this live. I'm going live in a few more moments to bring you more news, so stay tuned to the channel. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, and as always, Visca Barça.